Roster Rescue. I'm your host, Zack Xander. Today I'm bringing on a good friend, Chase Vernon, fantasy football intervention. Chase, what have you been up to, man? It's been a while since we've talked on the mic. I just saw you in Canton like 2 weeks ago, man. Real quick before we get started, how you been? What are you doing? Tell the good people out there what's new with Chase Vernon.
Dude, all sorts of fun stuff. First off, thanks for having me on, man. I'm very, very excited to sit down and talk football with you. You're always one of my favorite analysts in terms of, what you knew you were talking about. When I saw you over there on Facebook with your videos and whatnot, I was always impressed. So it's always good talking football with you, breaking some stuff down. I'm excited to do so tonight. But yeah, I've been working with Trophy Smack lately, so been doing a lot of stuff with them. And if you haven't been following me, you guys can go check out my stuff over there at FF_intervention on Twitter. But yeah, I'm working with Trophy Smack now full time, and I'm doing DFS with playerprofiler.com. You also have our Wednesday night show over there at Fantasy Intervention with Shane, Jacob, and myself. So, bunch of stuff going on, man. It's been a giant whirlwind.
Yeah, man, it was so awesome to see you in Canton last week, and I missed it. Did you guys end up at Jose's
Yeah,
Landing?
we
That
sure
was my
did.
old. That was my old like when I first turned 21, man. That's the bar I used to mob in. Like, were you there on karaoke night?
Yep, that's when we went. We went karaoke night, and we lit the place on fire. It was crazy, man. It was awesome.
Dude, I knew I actually used to play football with the DJ. I seen him. He must have had something on Facebook that karaoke's crazy tonight. We got all these football people in town, and I swear to God, like I seen a video from him, and it was you videotaping somebody sing. I don't know, was it "Baby Got Back" or something?
Really? Yeah. I remember that, man. That was funny as hell. I actually have a video of that because, yeah, like you said, it was a video of me videotaping him. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's great. So anyway, today we're going to jump in and play a game of smash or pass. And it's going to be we're getting real close. We're 2 weeks away from the first game of the NFL season. I know it's so crazy to even think about, but in 2 weeks we're finally going to get it on. So all the redrafts are just 100% full go. It's when everybody's home league is going on this weekend. I have like 3 drafts this weekend and 2 drafts the next weekend. I'm gonna have to do 2 drafts at the same time because it's just what they were going on at the same time. You got to pick one to be in live, and then I'm doing one for my computer. So it's really the time to get nitty gritty into redraft, and then the best ball is kind of winding down, and I really get my best ADP from the best ball draft results because it's so fluid. It's happening. I really, I think the Sharks are kind of in best ball a little bit. Do you agree with that, Chase? That's the
Oh,
best place to
100%.
find ADP is on Underdog, or do you have another source?
So I don't think it's the best place to find ADP, but it is the best place to find trending players and to assist your rankings to make better decisions about whatever platform you're on ADP. So of course, like if you're drafting on ESPN, for example, I saw like Elijah Moore was going in like the 10th round, which is absolutely absurd. Like that makes no sense to me. Meanwhile, you have guys, Elijah Moore on Underdog going, let's see, trying to find his stats or his stuff as we speak, probably around the 6th round or so, maybe the 5th round. So I mean, it's a place where you should find your rankings, for your players and to assist you in making the right decisions for your team.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. And it's you can't be living off ADP from May and June. So many things have happened. So I mean, they're really. I mean, I think you agree with it. There hasn't been like that injury yet. Like last year it was Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins. I'm not trying to jinx anybody.
Yeah, you better
Please
shut
don't
your
get
mouth.
hurt.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Please don't get
Just shut,
hurt.
shut, shut your mouth.
But there hasn't been like maybe too much to just completely move the needle. But I want the most updated ADP from the most educated people. I think it's coming from Underdogs. So first, we're going to play Smash or Pass. We're going to start with running backs. And I'm going to go ahead and just go from their ADP on Underdog. Let's start with Leonard Fournette. He's got an average draft position of 24.8. So basically the first pick in the third round of a 12-man league. Chase Vernon, are you smashing or passing Leonard Fournette as the first pick in the third round?
So overall, Leonard Fournette is going at 13th as the running back, which I think is perfectly fine. Last season, playing only 14 games, Leonard Fournette ended up finishing as the 6th overall running back. So that's without 3 games being played. With the opportunities that Leonard Fournette should see in the passing game once again this season, I think that Leonard Fournette could easily hit top 6 running back spot. By the way, he was number 4 overall for points per game. He could easily smash that again this year. No problem, especially with Chris Godwin being a little bit shaky coming in. Of course, there's no Rob Gronkowski. Russell Gage, whatever, Julio Jones, whatever. The biggest thing with Leonard Fournette and the reason why he was able to see so many targets was because this offense, people were afraid, man. People were afraid they would get attacked in the intermediate and deep routes. So they backed everybody off on coverage, pulled the safeties off, and pulled the linebackers off. So Leonard Fournette was seeing a ton of targets. Now, he wasn't seeing as many as he could see, right? Because Chris Godwin being healthy could get open. We have Mike Evans being able to get open, and Rob Gronkowski was able to get open. I don't know if we're going to see Julio Jones be able to get open, Russell Gage be able to get open as much as those guys were. And of course, Chris Godwin, coming off an injury, probably won't be able to get open as much as he was prior to. So Leonard Fournette will not only see the same amount of targets he saw last year, but possibly an increased amount of targets moving forward. And I gotta love those value on the targets. I understand that there's concerns with Giovanni Bernard. There's concerns there with Rachaad White. I'm going to go ahead. I love Rachaad White, but go ahead and get Rachaad White out of your mind. Okay. Like Tom Brady has never had a successful rookie running back for as long as he's been around. He doesn't trust him. He doesn't like him. And although Rachaad White is a little bit more refined than most rookie running backs, I don't see him really entering the game without an injury to Leonard Fournette. Keyshawn Vaughn was in a very similar situation last year, played himself out of a job essentially because Tom Brady didn't like him, right? Ronald Jones being young and immature, Tom Brady didn't like him. I'm not saying that Rachaad White is young and immature because I think he's further ahead than probably any other rookie running back in this class, but he's still not ready for the Tom Brady treatment. Meanwhile, Giovanni Bernard still has to prove that he's healthy. He was not last year. I'm going to go ahead and smash on Leonard Fournette.
You make some great points. You really do, because it is going to be a high octane offense. You don't know what Julio Jones is really going to be. This is not 2015. Let's face it, he did not look himself last year. He wasn't healthy, but when are you going to get healthy? So I'm not going to put a bunch of stock in Julio Jones. Chris Godwin is probably in October, early November. You're going to see him in the slot. Russell Gage doesn't scare. Yet Rachaad White is a real dude. Seriously, he has a ton of attributes that remind me of Alvin Kamara coming to the Saints his rookie season as a 3rd-round pick. And I'm not calling him he's Alvin Kamara right off the bat, but he does a lot of things and he makes him look so easy with little ins and outs, getting out of the backfield. I think it's a player that they're going to need. And it's really his ADP right there is I don't trust it. I don't trust him to be healthy enough to warrant the first pick in the 3rd round. He came in heavy, and I know he's losing his weight, and it was kind of a running joke because he did look so good last year, and it was kind of the same situation. And let's go back to 2020. Him and Ronald Jones were back and forth, and Bruce Arians really wanted a main running back. He doesn't really go for the running back by committee, but he's not there anymore. And I'm just thinking it's a little too risky in the top of the 3rd round. Leonard Fournette is a pretty easy fade for me at that spot. I mean, 24.8 is the first pick in the 3rd round, and I'm going a different way. There's other running backs and there's other wide receivers. There's just more safe plays, and the upside, I think his upside was last year. I don't think he has the top 5 upside because I don't think he can keep White off the field enough. There is enough weapons over there, and if conditioning's an issue, Brady's gonna check off from him. And let's face it, he was running checkdowns. It was nothing but checkdowns. He's not out there making moves on linebackers, getting open, creating separation. Rachaad White can do that. So his conditioning and Rachaad White are the reason I'm fading Leonard Fournette, first pick of the 3rd round. We disagree a little bit. Let's find out. Let's talk in October, maybe. Let's talk in November. We'll see who was right there. But go ahead and fade Leonard Fournette for me. Let's move on. Now, James Conner is a guy who was left for dead. Pittsburgh, they let him just walk. They moved on. They spent a ton of value in the draft on Najee Harris, and they were happy with that. And James Conner went and had just as good a season as Najee Harris, maybe better fantasy stats. I mean, he scored 18 touchdowns. He's in the mid third round, actually late in the mid. He's at 34.7. You know, a lot of people are drafting James Conner as their running back ones. Chase Vernon, I kind of already, you can kind of already tell the way I'm going on this guy right now. But what do you think about his ADP late third round, 34.7? Is it something you would buy? Would you smash on him?
All right, so I don't know if I'm smashing, right? Like there are other guys around this range that I would much rather have, that we've kind of already brought up to an extent. I mean, I'd much rather have Leonard Fournette. Nick Chubb arguably would rather have him. Travis Etienne, I'd rather have him. Where it becomes questionable for me is like the Brees Hall, the Cam Akers and stuff. So I'm not going to smash him at 34 by any stretch of the imagination because the majority of his production was done in touchdowns, right? He had 3 receiving touchdowns. He had 15 rushing touchdowns. It's not going to be like those types of numbers aren't going to be sustainable. Meanwhile, he only put up 752 rushing yards. Now he did add in 380 pass or receiving yards, but the guy need to see higher levels of production. Like people are fading Damian Harris right now for Ramondre Stevenson, whatever the reason is for that. Those people should also be fading James Conner just because the production isn't going to be there. It's not going to be, the efficiency levels aren't going to be there. Touch premium's not going to be there. It's just not going to be there.
He's not scoring 18 touchdowns again.
No.
If you are drafting him in the third round, you are drafting him to score 12 plus touchdowns, and he doesn't have that in him. You cannot guarantee it. He has injury concerns. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer right now, but this is the easiest fade in fantasy football, period. I don't take him at 34.7. I don't take him at 44.7. I don't take him at 54.7. I'm fading James Conner. Let somebody else deal with him. Kyler Murray is going to be a red zone threat running the ball. Health is a concern. Yes, he really impressed me with how good the tape looked, but he did get hurt at the end of the season. Like he had that injury. He's a rough and tumble guy. He runs really hard, and we've seen it with Chris Carson. And I was a huge Chris Carson hater. Even though I loved him as a player, I hated him as a fantasy football manager if he was on my team or if I was in a trade negotiation. His running style creates too much chaos, and which creates too many injuries, and he's not going to score 18 touchdowns. If he scores 10, then yes, he would be worth being drafted in this area. I don't think he can in just the regular production. He's touchdown dependent. I don't see him averaging 80 to 100 total yards every game and 4 receptions. There is a lot of weapons there. Hollywood Brown's there. Kyler Murray's going to do his things. DeAndre Hopkins is going to come back, guys. So in week 7, it's going to be DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown. They have a new tight end. They have a few other guys at running back. I like Keontae Ingram. I'm not saying he's going to just take the job, but I'm not trusting James Conner in the front end of this draft. I think a lot of people won a lot of fantasy weeks and maybe even championships, or at least got to the playoffs with James Conner because they got him for free last year. I mean, he was a sweetheart. It was like his first year in Pittsburgh all over again. He was just such a sweetheart, and I think it's time that it's not going to happen again. I'm not drafting him in the 3rd or 4th or 5th round. I'm going ahead and just fade him hard. But 34.7, I think we both agree, is not where you want to go in the 3rd round of your draft with James Conner. So let's move on. Another guy is David Montgomery. He's at 64.2. What do we think about that, Chase?
So this offense isn't going to be good enough. The defense isn't going to be good enough. They're not going to be in advantageous situations for Dave Montgomery. Meanwhile, when we try to break down exactly who Dave Montgomery is and how this offense operates, this is a wide zone run scheme based offense, which means that you have to have burst, you have to have speed to get to the outside. Now, last year they did tailor it, a little bit more towards him, obviously with the different coaching staff. This year, where they're going to be moving the pocket around, they're going to be asking Fields to move the ball and try to push it downfield for big opportunities, big time plays. It's not going to be the Dave Montgomery show this year. You're going to see terrible run blocking up front. We're going to see a shifting offensive line with shifting pockets, which is never good for running back. unless you want to talk like, okay, Alfred Morris, where you're going to get him super late. And then you have Khalil Herbert breathing down his neck, right? Tristan Ebner, who just got hurt recently, he was making a splash, right? And the biggest one is Darrington Evans, who fits this scheme to a T, right? Darrington Evans literally is the definition of what you want from a wide zone run scheme. The only reason why he hasn't made it thus far is because number one, he's been behind Derrick Henry, and number two, he's dealt with significant injuries throughout the start to his career. When we look at some of the most efficient runners thus far in preseason, and I understand it's preseason, Darrington Evans, I believe, for PFF grades, has finished out inside the top 10 for rushing grades thus far, like I said, in the preseason. He's literally an ideal fit. So if anything happens to David Montgomery and Darrington Evans is allowed to take the field and Darrington Evans does stand out, we could see a three-headed committee approach for the Chicago Bears moving forward. Meanwhile, there's just not enough upside in terms of this offense actually moving.
You know what? You make some good points, but you're not going to sway me. You aren't going to sway me because this is still, I mean, we're talking fifth, sixth round. David Montgomery is going into his fourth season, and he has shown the production. The last 2 years, it's been consistent. Now, Khalil Herbert, I mean, we're talking Ebner, who's already hurt, Evans, who's always hurt. Khalil Herbert is about 200 pounds. They play in NFC North and Chicago, November, December. I think David Montgomery is going to get his. He doesn't have to be your RB1, which he won a ton of people championships at the end of 2020 season. I mean, he was ridiculous, and he was very solid last year at the end of the season. He can catch the ball. He breaks a ton of tackles. He's going to be productive enough to warrant this draft position. It's not something I can just completely pass. I mean, I think that's what you're looking for if you go maybe wide receiver really early. If it's a super flex draft, quarterback, running, if you try to play the zero RB, but don't want to be 1,000% zero RB, which I mean, nobody ever really is. You have to get somebody out there in the fifth or sixth round. I think you can do a lot worse than David Montgomery. I mean, who are some of the other guys that are going that round that we can compare it to, even if it's a different position?
Let's see. I mean, I'd much rather have A.J. Dillon, Elijah Mitchell, Josh Jacobs, Chase Edmonds. That's just for the running backs, J.K. Dobbins.
You want to talk about committee? I mean, Chase Edmonds in Miami. I mean, who knows what they're really doing there?
Yeah, but that offense is going to move. You're going to see premium touches, which is key for the running back position. I mean, we might not even see David Montgomery get a red zone carry the entire year because we don't know if Chicago's going to be able to score. It is going to be terrible. Justin Fields has had no time to throw whatsoever. They're not going to run the ball in garbage points.
I mean, he's still on the field. They're going to he's going to get catches. They're going to get a red zone here and there. I'm not calling them they're like playoff bound or anything. They're not going to be. They're not going 2-15. Chase, like they're going. Justin Fields is going to improve. Darnell Mooney is a top 25 wide receiver in this league. Komet's solid. They don't have another wide receiver presence. I mean, trust me, it's not an elite, optimal offense to get behind. But give me David Montgomery in the sixth round. You can do worse. I mean, yeah, I'm drafting him before Chase Edmonds and A.J. Dillon. I'm sorry. I mean, you're praying for an Aaron Jones injury, then he's an RB1.
No, you're not. No, you don't need that. He's going to be relevant regardless.
And he can be relevant, but I mean, he's not. I mean, 10, 12 points relevant. He's not good. When is he going to get a 20-point game? When Aaron Jones is hurt? I mean, I'm not calling. I mean, I'm a big A.J. Dillon fan. I mean, I was telling everybody to buy him before last year. And I mean, they're comparable, but give me the guy that I've seen do it. I think his body of work deserves a little bit more respect than what he's getting right now.
He gets no respect. I spit on his body of work. So I did this project where I actually had 8 weeks and I broke down division by division over the course of 8 weeks without looking at the other divisions. I didn't look at the other divisions whatsoever. I literally did it just by head off of what I thought. And it took me 8 weeks to do this project. I ended up finishing out where I was, God, what was the total game amount? It was like 700 and I don't remember the exact number, but essentially I ended up finishing one game off of a perfect overall score for wins and losses. inside of the divisions. Like, so I ended up predicting everything almost perfectly from my this formula that I use. I was literally, it was technically 2 games off, but it was a 1 game separation because I had one more loss than I did win for predicting everything across to make it 500. Anyways, I ended up coming up with the division for the NFC North. Green Bay Packers finished first, 12-5. Minnesota Vikings finished second, 7-10. Detroit Lions finished third, 6-11. I have the Chicago Bears at 4-13. The Chicago Bears team is going to be brutal this year, and I don't want any part of this offense. Mooney's even questionable at his ADP, and that's like the only guy that I would actually want a piece of. Maybe Cole Kmet. Maybe
I
Cole
love
Kmet.
Mooney. I think Fields is going to have a good season too. But let's move on. Let's move on. Here's one. It's going to be farther down your draft, guys. It's going to be a lot farther down. But this is, this is where you have to strike gold in the after the 10th round. You got to find some production. You're going to have injuries in your fantasy on your fantasy team. You're going to have bye weeks. You're going to get, it's the NFL. Someone's going to get suspended or go to jail. So you have to be deep. I mean, to make a deep playoff run, you guys got to be deep. So there's a guy you can get after the 12th round who I think has legit RB2 upside, and that's Kenneth Gainwell. You can get him at 129.6. And, the Philadelphia Eagles are a team that really, I have a ton of interest in how that team is going to look. Chase, what are we thinking about Kenneth Gainwell later in the draft?
So Kenneth Gainwell is one of my favorite targets. I actually have him rostered more than any other running back across the board. He is my number one, or for best ball, he is my number one most rostered best ball player, period. More than wide receiver, more than any of the wide receiver, more than any other tight end, more than any other quarterback. Kenneth Gainwell is my top guy rostered. His explosive ability is through the roof. If something happens with Miles Sanders, we could be talking about an RB1 type season. It's possible. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it is possible. The biggest thing, though, is his efficiency levels, right? Like, we don't need him to see a ton of volume. We need him to get 12 to 15 touches for him to be, an RB, borderline RB1, probably RB2 type player every single week. And I think they could easily see that. The Philadelphia offense is going to move. They're going to score touchdowns. He's going to be a piece of that. He was last year. And I don't know what the hell happened when Miles Sanders got hurt and Kenneth Gainwell was not, like, all of a sudden he was taken out of the offense because Miles Sanders wasn't there. It was like, like they're buddies, and the teacher punishes both kids, although one kid did something wrong, but the other kid's like his buddy and he was laughing. It's like the same thing. Like, something happened over there where Kenneth Gainwell got punished and taken out of the game when Miles Sanders wasn't there. Meanwhile, when Miles Sanders was there, Kenneth Gainwell was through the roof in his efficiency. We were just watering at the mouth, waiting for him to see those touches. This year, I think it's going to happen.
This is just, at the end of the draft in the 12th round, like, give me Kenneth Gainwell all day. He is a fantastic receiver out of the backfield. I mean, right there, he's the best on the team. He's one of the better ones in the whole league. Now, he is slight of frame. I know he weighed 200 pounds, I think, at his pro day, but I think he plays at about 190, 195. He's not a guy you want to give 20 carries to by any means. And he might not be the best goal line carrier, even though he was getting some goal line looks last year. He was getting some weighted touches. And I think he's the favorite running back in that backfield. I think that's who the coach is going to lean on. I think Hurts trusts him. There's something going on, like you said, with Miles Sanders. We all loved him out of Penn State his first year. I remember, man, like, after his rookie season, was Miles Sanders going like first, second round in dynasty startup one quarterback leagues? I mean, I was fading it huge, but I mean, people loved Miles Sanders, and he really hasn't ever not produced. He's been very efficient himself. It's just, I don't know, something's weird in that backfield. And I think Kenneth Gainwell is going to be the favorite. I don't think he's going to be a workhorse, like I said, again, with 20 carries or anything, but I think he can get 10, 12, maybe even 15 touches, maybe 5 of them receptions. And this guy can average an easy 70, 80 total yards per game. And if you're getting that out of a 12th or 13th round player, then bravo. You got yourself a stud, man. I'm smashing that. That's the biggest smash of all the running backs we've talked about. And I don't think it's close. There's a reason why I brought him up. Like, there's a lot of sleeper running backs I could have brought up, but obviously he's one that I like. But I think we need to put people on notice, Chase, that you need to go out and maybe you might feel like you're overdrafting Kenneth Gainwell because he might be a little bit lower on that ADP or on whatever book you're drafting with. But like Kenneth Gainwell is the running back to own in Philadelphia, guys.
He is. He is.
And I mean, Hurts was productive. They're going to move the ball. I mean, I think it's an easy smash. So that was running backs real quick. Let's switch over to wide receivers. And let's go ahead and start with Jerry Jeudy with the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson comes in. Tim Patrick got hurt. What are we thinking about him at an ADP of 44 overall?
This is a tough one. I haven't been able to really like sift through this. So in a lot of cases, I'm kind of avoiding Jerry Jeudy, but like it's not that I don't like him. I just like other guys around him. Like Juju Smith-Schuster could be poised for a wide receiver one type season, right? Marquise Brown poised for one wide receiver one type season, right around him. We have Deontay Johnson, who is poised for a wide receiver one type season. Brandon Cooks, who's always reliable. Rashad Bateman, high end wide receiver two type season. I mean, there's just so many other guys that don't have the same question marks that Jerry Jeudy has that I would much rather take a shot on. And I don't think that Jerry Jeudy's a bad player. It's just we haven't seen it yet. And I know he said Drew Lock, there's been no really efficient quarterback there. So Russell Wilson is a definite upgrade, but we don't know how this offense is going to look with Russell Wilson. We don't know if they're going to slow down the pace of play. We don't know if Jerry Jeudy is going to see 7 targets a game, which is what he essentially need to see in order to get there. So for right now, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit on Jerry Jeudy, and I'm taking some of these other guys around him.
I agree 100%. I love Jerry Jeudy. He was my favorite buy last year, and he was torching the Giants week one. I know you remember. He was torching the Giants week one, and then he damn near broke his foot off. I don't even know how he came back last season. Obviously, wasn't the same person. Let's go back to 2020. He had some remarkable tape with some very bad drops, and everybody saw the upside. And 44 overall is, what are we talking? The late fourth round. I like some of the other guys that you mentioned. Bateman, for sure. I would draft Rashad Bateman over Jerry Jeudy. He's going to be the focus of that offense. Judy's going to be contending with a lot of weapons. They got Albert O, 2 stud running backs. Cortland Sutton. I mean, we don't know who Russell Wilson usually doesn't play favorites. He spreads the ball around pretty well, but I can't get in on it in round 4, maybe late round 5, maybe a full round below late 5. I'm pretty into it. Early 6, I'd feel like I'd smash, but I'm gonna have to pass. I think I would smash on a couple other players at the ADP. Let's jump into Michael Pittman. He's getting himself a new quarterback, and I've heard it. Who's this year's Cooper Kupp? I've heard it. Who got a Cooper Kupp last year? He finally got a good quarterback, and he became, a wide receiver too that was going in the 5th or 6th round of drafts last year. And then he put on an all-time great wide receiver productive season. And I've heard a lot of whispers that Michael Pittman is the best candidate to be this year's Cooper Kupp. Chase Vernon, what's your verdict? Because at 27.5, that's a pretty damn high draft pick.
It is. And for redraft leagues, I don't think Michael Pittman is going even relatively close to this spot. So if you can get him here, it's pretty advantageous. But were you in the draft when we were doing the experts mock draft, and I ended up selecting Michael Pittman in the 3rd round, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, that's crazy!"
I think I was there.
I love Michael Pittman, man. Michael Pittman for me is going to be an absolute stud this year. He's going to see probably north of 150 targets. I believe that Matt Ryan has targeted his top wide receiver an average of 169 times per season for his wide receiver one since coming into the league. I know that Michael Pittman might not be Julio Jones, but guess what? He's going to be a stud in this league. So you're going to see hyper target. He's going to see north of 140 targets. Michael Pittman's a lock. Like if you can get him, early 3rd round, early 4th, like any time after the 2nd round, grab him every single time.
I mean, he might be playing with his best quarterback ever, but did we really watch Matt Ryan the last year or two? I mean, this is not Matt Ryan of the Super Bowl year. His skills have faded. He's still very accurate, but he's starting to get into. It's kind of looking like what Big Ben was last year. It's he's not trust. He doesn't want to get hit. I mean, he's older. I mean, what is he? 37 this year.
He had nobody to throw to. Come
I
on.
mean that I'm. He had Kyle Pitts. I mean, we all love Kyle Pitts, but I'm not even going to go on about that. Yeah, he might not have had a wide receiver like Michael Pittman on the outside, but even the year before when he had Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, I know Ridley had a decent season, but I'm looking for like I'm watching the game tape and the big time throws and the arm strength isn't there, and I'm not going to trust Matt Ryan to facilitate a number one wide receiver in fantasy football this year, guys. I'm not. It's going to be a run first team, and there's nobody on the outside. You want to talk about nobody to throw to? He doesn't have a Kyle Pitts at tight end. That's for goddamn sure. And who's on the outside? Who's their wide receiver two right now? Are you going to trust Paris Campbell? Or
Hey, we're
I
talking
mean,
about Michael Pittman here. Is going to see over 140 targets.
140. We'll see on that. It's still a run first team. This isn't Atlanta no more. This is an ATL. This is going to be a run first, Jonathan Taylor based offense.
That said that
Sprinkling
they
in
want to
some 90
pass
and
more
high.
because they don't think they can win playoff games without passing. They have literally came out and said that. They said we will not be running as often as we did. We cannot win games without passing the ball. That's why we need Matt Ryan.
And yeah, Matt Ryan ain't it. I'm sorry. I mean, Carson Wentz might not have been it, but Matt Ryan ain't. It's not 2015, man. This isn't the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. Like this isn't prime Matt Ryan. This is, I'm comparing this to Big Ben at the end of his Pittsburgh career, that where it's not going to look great, and teams are going to. All right, Michael Pittman has showed out a little bit. He's definitely smashed his second round draft status. I mean, he's a legit wide receiver. I got to jump on board. I faded him a little bit coming out of college. I thought he was kind of just a just overpowering presence on the outside who just wasn't a great route runner. He showed a little bit more wiggle than I first thought he was going to show at the NFL level. So I'm not going to diminish so much his skill, but I'm looking at a run-based offense with a below-average quarterback. I don't think he's going
Below
to facilitate.
average. God,
What
are
is
you
Matt?
serious?
Are you watching these games the last 2 years, Chase? I
Yeah,
mean,
dude.
Matt
He
Ryan
didn't have
is
anybody to throw
he's a
to.
shell. Is Kyle fucking Pitts is like a top 5 player in the NFL.
No,
Everybody,
he's not. He was a rookie last year.
doesn't fucking matter. He's 6'6" and runs a 4.4. He's 250 pounds. Kyle Pitts was a mismatch every time. And even if Michael Pittman is that type of player, he's a mismatch every single time. They're gonna double the shit out of him when it's pass first situations. And it's a run-based offense. I mean, give me Michael Pittman a little bit later in your drafts, but not at the start of the third round, Chase. I am sorry.
No, you're not.
You're not going to talk me
Don't
into
apologize. Don't apologize. You're not sorry.
fuck Michael Pittman in the third round. Come on, bro. So let's move on. We disagreed on that one. Like, again, we'll check in October, maybe November, and we'll see how some of these went. But let's move on quickly. Brandon Ayuk. He has an ADP of 69.3. And I believe that's an ADP that you can gain value on. I'm going to go on this one first. Give me some Brandon Ayuk in the 7th round of your drafts. And, everybody's liking how Trey Lance is looking now. It's going to show a little bit of inaccuracies, but we don't know who's going to, I don't know if it's going to be such a just run-based offense. Debo, let's face it, Debo, that like it's kind of the James Conner, like you don't want to just bet against somebody because like it's going to be really hard to pull off that season again. But I mean, Debo plays a rough, tough style of football, and he's been banged up. And if he gets banged up, Brandon Ayuk is going to be the focus of that pass game along with George Kittle, and there's no legitimate number 3. I think there is a ton of upside drafting Brandon Ayuk in the 7th, 8th round, 69.3. Give me that. I'm going to go ahead and smash on some Brandon Ayuk going into his 3rd year, usually a big year for wide receivers to take that next step. I think he's solidified himself in that offense. I think Kyle Shanahan's going to trust him a little bit. Trey Lance is going to have some ups and downs, but it's going to be when the ups are ups. I mean, it's going to be special. The play calling of Kyle Shanahan, give me that. Give me the wide receiver 2 in San Francisco that who can possibly be the wide receiver 1 really quick because, they're running Debo into the fucking ground. What do you think?
Man, you're talking about having guys as a wide receiver 2 in an offense that's not going to pass, with a quarterback who has an untested arm, and you're taking him over the wide receiver 1 for the Packers, you're taking him over the wide receiver 1 for the
Wait,
Falcons, you're taking him over the wide receiver 1 for the Browns, you're taking him over the potential wide receiver 1 for the Arizona Cardinals after 8 games. You're talking about taking him over the wide receiver 1 for the Giants, like, who are going to have to
well,
pass.
I mean, you other than Aaron Rodgers, I mean, come on, we're talking about Allen Lazard,
Yeah, we
wide
are.
receiver 1 for the Packers. Get the fuck.
Yeah, we are.
Everyone you've named are terrible offenses. I mean, until Deshaun
What?
Watson goes in Cleveland, that's a
Amari,
run first offense, and with Jacoby Brissett,
he'll
you're
still
talking
see
Drake
plenty of
London.
volume.
You're talking Drake London with Marcus Mariota. I mean, what are we talking? Kadarius Toney with Daniel
Hell
Jones.
yeah, we're talking about Kadarius
I
Toney.
mean, you're not making a great point yet with the offenses yet, Chase. You're I mean, hit me with some more knowledge than that. I mean, Marcus Mariota is gonna. I mean, we like Drake London, but
All right, so how are you saying that the Green Bay Packers aren't going to have a great offense? We're talking about the wide receiver 1 for one of the top offenses, and he also sees tons of targets in the red zone. He's a red zone magnet
I
over
mean,
there for the
is he the
Packers.
wide receiver 1? I mean, do we even know
Yeah.
that, man? He's not. He's not a. He's
Yes, he
not a
is the
great
wide
player.
receiver
He's like
1.
a C wide receiver. Yes, it's
No.
Aaron Rodgers, but he's still a C.
You just said the guy's 6'6" and runs a 4.4. Allen Lazard's not that far off. So, either way, Allen Lazard is still a major target for Aaron Rodgers. Meanwhile, Brandon Ayuk is on an offense that is not going to run the ball. So that argument about Mari Cooper is relevant because Brandon Ayuk is the third option on this offense. Fourth option, if you include, hell, Trey Lance might rather scramble than throw it downfield to Brandon Ayuk. So you're talking about probably the fourth option on passing plays over there for an offense that is on a slow pace of play, that wants to feature Deebo Samuel, that wants to feature George Kittle, that wants to feature the running game more than anything. Meanwhile, Kadarius Toney is going to be playing the Stephon Diggs role over there for the New York Giants, who are going to have to pass on a regular basis. And guess what? Daniel Jones might not be great, but he can throw a 5-yard out to Kadarius Toney, who is the master of the yards after the catch. So, I mean, there are just a slew of players I would rather have than Brandon Ayuk, and I think it's a wasted pick by going with Brandon Ayuk because you're never going to feel confident starting him. That's the biggest factor, is you're never going to feel comfortable starting Brandon Ayuk.
He's going to emerge. He's going to emerge as a legitimate playmaker in this league. I believe we will be talking about Brandon Ayuk very differently going into the 2023 draft. Your fantasy drafts this season. I mean, he's a talented guy that is going into his third year, that he has something to prove. I mean, he was getting a lot of slack last year, and a lot of people were feeling this way about him last year. I think they were about a year ahead. And no, I don't want to just bank on Deebo getting banged up or whatever, but like let's face it, guys. Like, he's in the backfield a lot, and they geared that contract to where, hey, we're going to use you still in the backfield, and we're going to pay you for it. But I mean, what's the odds Deebo plays 17 games this season? It's very slim. Give me Brandon Ayuk. I think there is a ton of fucking upside with that. I mean, I think that's a player that we're going to look at the end of the season, and you're going to see a lot of playoff teams and a lot of championship teams with Brandon Ayuk as their wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and you're like, damn, that looks really good right now. I have a feeling, but I liked his tape at the end of last year, and they're starting to trust him. Give me Brandon Ayuk, and I think Trey Lance is going to do just enough. There's going to be some bad spots. Don't get me wrong. He has some accuracy issues. He is a running mobile quarterback, but I don't think they're going to put him out there and run him like Josh Allen. Ayuk is going to be he might not be the main focus of this offense, but they're going to spread it around between the 3 playmakers, and the other 2 are very injury prone. So let's hit one more wide receiver. Mike Evans, 22.4 in the second round. Are you smashing that?
So Mike Evans, where is he going now? You said.
I see it at the end of the second round.
Yeah, no, that's
22.4.
too early. I saw him dip into the early 4th round in a recent draft, and I think that's where I feel more comfortable with him. I just don't see any way, shape, or form that he actually does move up into that high end. Like, when we weren't talking about Chris Godwin making it as early as he did, when we weren't seeing certain players come through, Julio Jones getting signed, Russell Gage getting signed, I thought that Mike Evans could actually be the wide receiver 1 in the NFL. Now I see him more as a back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. I'd feel more comfortable taking him in the 3rd round and definitely in the 4th round. I would smack accept or smack draft so fast if I saw him in the 4th round. The 3rd round, I would still end up drafting him. 2nd round, a little bit too high for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking end of the second, ahead of Tyreek Hill, ahead of Nick Chubb, T. Higgins, my man Kyle Pitts, Keenan Allen. I feel much more comfortable about Keenan Allen than I do Mike Evans. I mean, Mike Evans to me has always been. I mean, he's always in your lineup. You're never benching Mike Evans like that. That's never the point of this. But it's like he's always been a very touchdown dependent wide receiver, even though he's had 1,000 yards every single season. It's how many games has he had 3 catches for 35 yards, and you're like, oh shit, damn it. But the next week he has 4 catches for 48 yards, but he has 2 touchdowns. And then he has a pop game. Of course, I'm not saying he's not capable of a 100-yard game, but we are going into, I think it's his 9th season. His wheels aren't the best. He's constantly has lower extremity issues, either hamstring or calf. And they bring in Julio Jones. They have the running backs that we talked about: Fournette, Rashad White, even Gio Bernard. I mean, that you always know that's going to be in there. Chris Godwin is on the fast track to getting in the lineup sooner than later. Like 2 months ago, when they did not have Julio Jones and Chris Godwin, you weren't sure about the injury. Like I felt a lot more comfortable about Mike Evans being a wide receiver 1 this season than I do right now. I'm going to go ahead and just I'm passing that, and I'm more like you. Like maybe 2 rounds later, I feel a lot more comfortable about Mike Evans, but I don't. I think he's going to be very consistent by the end of the season. He's going to have very consistent numbers like he always does, but I don't see the upside of being drafted in the 2nd round. It's not there. I mean, Chris Godwin. I mean, do you have any timetable that you think Chris Godwin's going to come back and play in the slot in that offense? Are you feeling
Yeah,
like
he'll
mid
be back
October?
relatively soon. He'll be back I think he'll be back sooner than that. I just think that he'll end up being worked in. Like he won't be a full-time player until further out.
And there's some other guys. I mean, they still have Scotty Miller. They have Darden. Tyler Johnson was having a huge game in the preseason. I know it's preseason, but hey, you brought up some preseason shit earlier. So Tyler Johnson looked really good in the preseason game, and he's a guy that I really like coming out of Minnesota who could be sprinkled in that takes some of that production away from him. Let's go real quick to some tight end ADP because I know we're on a little time cramp right here. We got Travis Kelce at 12.9, Mark Andrews 21.7, Kyle Pitts 29.1. I want to focus in on a guy that I'm really going to like his ADP, and then I'm just going to ask you just kind of who do you like in this range at the tight end position. Dalton Schultz 71.7. That's a guy I'm smashing all day.
Yeah,
Mark Cooper's gone.
Dalton Schultz is going to be special, man. He's going to be special. It's hands down. Like you just said, Amari Cooper's going to be gone. We're talking about offenses that is going to be passing. Dak Prescott's going to be getting him the ball. I actually have him, and this is going to sound crazy. I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for this because I already have. I just switched up my rankings in Dynasty Nerds. I have Dalton Schultz in Dynasty ahead of, drumroll, Mark Andrews. So I know that's nuts, and I don't really care. I'm going a little bit ballsy here because if you're not ahead of the curve, then you are, pretty much just going to get demolished in a lot of dynasty leagues. I have Dalton Schultz as a stud. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm willing to take the chance on it.
Yeah, that man. We're gonna have to talk about that at a different time. That is a mouthful. I mean, if we're talking dynasty, Dalton Schultz 2022 season, I'm all about it. Maury Cooper's gone. Michael Gallup, even if he starts day 1, which Jerry Jones says he is, I don't know. This dude tore his ACL in the last game of the season. Other than CDL and Dalton Schultz and those running backs, I mean, it is nothing. Schultz is going to get peppered, even if it's only 5, 6, 7 yards. I mean, those PPR points add up. He's going to be insanely consistent. Count him for 10, 12 every single game, and then he's going to have some 20-point games that can win you. I mean, I know a ton of Super Bowl champions last year in fantasy had Dalton Schultz. I mean, a ton had Dalton Schultz, and you got him for free, and he was a sweetheart. And I usually try to fade sweethearts because I usually, if I didn't have him, you have that nasty taste in your mouth. You're like, fuck him. They got Dalton Schultz as a free agent. And I spent all this, you got someone that looks like shit at the end of the season, but Dalton Schultz is going to be a consistent tight end that you can get in the 7th round that you can find. And I think he's going to put up points that match up some of the wide receivers and running backs that you're going to draft at that same exact period in the draft. I mean, Chase said it. I said it. Dalton Schultz, smash the fuck out of Dalton Schultz in your drafts. I mean, try to get him. And especially, there was a tight end. The draft, real quickly, the draft I was just in, it went bang, bang, bang. Someone took Waller, someone took Kittle, and then it was on me. I needed a tight end, and it was like bang. I was right in the middle of the tight end run, and I took Schultz, and I loved it, and it ended up to be one of my favorite drafts. Give me Dalton Schultz. Anybody else at the tight end region you want to speak on, good or bad? George Kittle and Darren Waller go basically back to back, 52.1, 53.9. What do you think about both their ADPs?
Which one were we talking about? George Kittle and who else?
Waller.
Yeah, I mean, they're fine. You can do worse. I don't have a lot of shares of them, but I mean, you could do worse. I will say a deep sleeper for me this year in drafts is going to be Evan Ingram over there for Jacksonville. And I've never liked Evan Ingram. I don't think I've had him on a single fantasy team, but the type of offense that Jacksonville runs, under Doug Peterson, they love to feature the tight ends. They love to feature the running backs in the passing attack. They like to run rub routes and get their guys open and let the guys do things with the ball in their hands. Now, Evan Ingram still has to catch the ball in order to do things with the ball in his hands, which has been a major deficiency of his. But he is going to be a smash play this year. Doug Peterson has never had a wide receiver lead the team in receiving as a head coach. It's not going to start this year with Christian Kirk. Promise you.
Wow, that's a real stat. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Peterson's never had anybody. Wow. You know what? And you're getting him at 180, yo. Evan Ingram, I'm all about it. I mean, I absolutely love that take, Chase. Seriously, Evan Ingram late in your drafts. I mean, that's a smash
Last
and a
pick,
half.
throw it up.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Don't draft a tight end for the entire draft. Wait until your last pick and take Evan Ingram.
I mean, this is, a first round pick, a 4.42 guy who, let's face it, man, the Giants have been a mess for how long? His whole term there. I mean, all 5 years he was there. It was a fucking mess. It was the end of the Eli, the start of the Daniel Jones, and he had injury concerns. And the Jaguars, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot in the 3rd and 4th quarter. Trevor Lawrence is going to be better. I love that take, for real. Chase Vernon, this was fun, dude. We're going to have to do it again real quick. Before we get off, man, let everybody know where to find you again one more time. And then we're going to go ahead and peace out, and then we'll see you next time.
Yeah, just go check out my Twitter at @FF_intervention. Go ahead, subscribe or go follow me. And you can see all my content coming out for Player Profiler and Trophy Smack.
Awesome. Chase Vernon, great guy, good drinking buddy. Go follow him on Twitter. Go follow everything he's doing. You will be smarter for it. So, like I said, we had a couple disagreements. We agreed on a couple things. Go draft Dalton Schultz. I'm not Leo Fournette, but he says go get him. And God, Brandon Ayuk. Whew, I can't wait till October. We're going to talk about him again. So I'm Zack Zander. This is Roster Rescue. Everybody have a good night.
Peace.